start streaming. Make sure our audio is good to go, and we will head out of the station. Although we got a lot of different. I see no visual over here on the YouTubes, which is not great. It's trying. Let's try. Let's see if it'll go. It's like the machine is struggling. I don't like this at all. Will it take it is the question. And it says it's running, but I don't see it yet. All right, looks like YouTube is sorting itself out, which is good. I'm gonna mute that back down. So the live stream appears to be functioning, which is always a solid. I'm gonna sit here and make sure Discord is doing its thing before we head out of the station as well. So the last thing we want to do is get this going and then not have it going at all. And look at that. It looks like CouchBot's getting a lot more consistent with firing on time. So, very late start to the morning here. Apologize for that. Had to do some notes here because we've got a lot of different stuff moving in quite a few different directions, and I wanted to make sure we were addressing all the questions that are coming through this morning. Let's just get ourselves sorted out here just a hair, so we can make the most of our time. All right. So we've got our there we go. Okay. We've got all of our stuff here. We've got so many files open. That's the problem. I'm going to have to start breaking feedback loop into a couple of sessions, probably. All right, so let me get my notes back up and running here. Actually, I'm just going to go in and make a quick adjustment to that because it seems like my display is falling asleep too fast. Auto lock. There we go. That should hopefully take care of it. All right. And I think we're back. Okay, so make sure my notes are here, and let's just go ahead and get this underway and see what we can do. Greetings, one and all. Chris Courtney here, New Pragmatic. It's time for the feedback loop. We've got 4 pieces. Actually, we've got more than 4. To be honest with you, we've got more than that. We have 4 work. We have work from 4 students. It may be more pieces of work, but if we have work from 4 students, we've got Abraham, we've got Eddie, we've got Abby, we've got Bren, and we've got you. I'm glad you're here with us this morning. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I've got my notes here for today's session, and let's go ahead and transition over. And let's start with here with Abraham. And I'm going to just hide away the controls here in Figma. So Abraham is working on a dashboard, and this is the second time we've seen the dashboard. Some of the ins and outs of what he's working on have been removed. I know that as we spoke earlier, this is like an item C here to schedule Abraham. So there's a few things that I like. First of all, you had a question about search. If search is limited to this level, I think it's fine having it here. It's a bit limited, and you have to think about, okay, so when I show those results, do those just replace this center section? Do I, when I hit search, do I get a new view? That's something to consider. As far as the schedule cards go that are down here on the side, and I know that like this is, while this is a little bit higher in fidelity, this is definitely like the lowest fidelity on the screen. I do think that you're probably, it says scheduled call Mrs. H 1 minute. I think you should consider making these cards a little taller, so that you have an opportunity to have multiple lines of information in here. I wouldn't worry about the width. I just worry about the height, and I would just allow that to have the space that it needs to operate, and then I think you're fine. Um, as far as the logo, not logos, but the filters on the left hand side go, I think the spacing's pretty good. It feels a little aired out by comparison with the rest of the page, and but it also feels tappable. Like if I was on a tablet, I feel like I could just simply tap on these things and they would work for me. The question is that really your intention? If it is your intention, then I need to make the rest of this feel like this, which means I'm going to have to make these cards a little taller, and there's a lot of constraints here horizontally, so it might be a situation where I need to adjust. Um, and then I also need to do the same to the schedule over here. If it's not, if like tablet usage isn't your intention, then I might just bring this in a bit. I wouldn't bring it in too much. I think this is much closer spacing wise than this is. But I think that like some modulation to get the spacing of the left rail and the other elements closer together. I think like just some adjustment across the board is necessary, because right now the filtered items feel like a different design from the rest of it, but I don't necessarily think this is bad. All right, so that's what I would do. I would either adjust the others to be more like the rail, or adjust that rail to be more like the others, and then move forward. And a lot of that's going to come down to where is this being used at. Okay, if it's like touchscreen, if it's touchscreens, I want this. If it's not touchscreens, then this is probably okay. All right, so that's Abraham, and good job there, Abraham. This is moving along in a good direction. I want to talk to Eddie. And Eddie, you are working on your. Eddie's just getting started with visual design, so he is in the midst of the hierarchy project. And if we turn our guides back on, you'll see that right away, Eddie, you've got your guides, and I don't want to bang on this too much because you haven't even gone through the guides exercise yet. That's next. But I always would encourage you to pay close attention to where those guides are and utilize them whenever they are present or available. Um, as you go through and you're sizing these things, I think there's some work that can be done here. That said, you've got the left and the right fine. Here, I can see that you're trying to stay to the guides. But it's a situation where, like, as we're moving vertically, you've got these images. First of all, this image is repeated, so I wouldn't use it again. Okay, these images, this is images also repeated. So you've got really two images here. And if my selections here say I've got two images, then I just want to go. I want to go larger with those to try to make it hold that space to the right or to the left. I've been getting my directions backward lately. Also, you could bring those in because you have the space over here to the right, which makes me wonder. Okay, so is the goal here to make it centered? I don't know. If not, then I would bring these out, bring this out, and then consider going back up. The other thing to keep in mind, Eddie, is that you've got a number of other images. There are two other large images here that are nature focused that you could be pulling into play here. Um, that you could utilize down here. There's no requirement to fill up the space. You could also just as easily drag this to the bottom, and that would work too. The whole focus here is, can I create a layout with nature photos that have a vertical focus? And the vertical focus here is this large image. So yes, in many ways, this was successful, but when we get right down to what was being done, the way that this was being organized and the content that was being used, these two images can't be used again. They're off limits. So what if that, now this is less successful, right? So what can I do to make this work better? And one of the first things I would do is I would utilize the grid, and I would begin to. And this is set to fill. I'm always going to set this stuff to crop. But then again, I don't want it to crop like that. So essentially, what can we do to get this on the grid, to get these, these can come up in size. Your focus is still going to be here. When we come over here, this is less successful, okay? You've got the same images being utilized over and over, which, this rail down here. I struggle to figure out what's going on here, Eddie, because, like you were doing so well over here, this seems like it's lost its way. And I'm not sure if this was intended to be turned in yet or not. But again, horizontal focus. I'm just going to draw on some rectangles here. I'm picking one of these images and I'm going horizontal with it. And then I'm picking some other images and I'm probably going to do, something else with them. And those could be smaller. Maybe it's a couple of images. I don't know. But like, aside from that looking like a screaming face, I'm just trying to get you to select images of bridges. And technically this nature bridge here can be used. This image right here is poorly cropped. This is a very vertical image, as we can see. Well, it's over here. Yeah, this image is very vertical, okay? And you've cropped it into a horizontal. I think at most, 3 images, and this is done. You've got 9 here, okay? We got to simplify it. Here, vertical focus. You've got a lot of great vertical images. Here's one that we were just talking about. Why wouldn't I just, I'm just going to bring it over here. Why wouldn't I just go big with that? And then maybe come back with, there's nothing saying that you can't have horizontal photos elsewhere. This is a great one. That still works as vertical. I still focus on the vertical photo, and the motion of the page is still vertical. And then if I want to come back with some of these others, like this one for instance, I could totally pull that in. And this photo has got a lot of opportunities to crop it. I think you can come up and do something like that with it. You can crop that image. And are there other vertical photos for bridges? It's really weird. Seems like there would be more than that. Regardless, there's things that you could do here. All right. And also vertical focus, you could probably, you know, if you're trying to establish vertical as a direction, you could also do something like this, which is going to seem a little different than what I normally would tell people, but you know, that's horizontal, but the overall package is still tall. Although you're beginning to bleed into the realm of, is it more horizontal than it's almost more square. But when you do something like that, that makes it more vertical. Although there's a billion ways to chop this thing up, and this would be a definite way to keep it more vertical. Okay, so again, Eddie, we're just kind of coming through here and riffing to try to get you to utilize the space. Right now, this is not utilizing the space. This is just repeating photos and not really utilizing the space. I need more work here. Okay. On the other side of things, you have. So I'm going to close that. On the other side of things, you've got a number of invitations out, and you're working through your surveys. And I think that from that perspective, you're doing very well. The one thing I would encourage you to do is you sent these out on the 8th. Today is the 10th. Okay, you want to, if you haven't heard anything by end of day from these, you want to move on to the next batch. Okay. Because you have a tightening window to schedule these user interviews in, and the reason I say that is Christmas is coming up, and what did we learn? What did we learn over Thanksgiving? And you can talk to anybody who was doing user surveys or user interviews or product testing over the Thanksgiving holiday. Once you get within the gravity pull of that holiday, nobody wants to talk to you. They're focused on other things. They got to do their family thing. So you've got to get this bit wrapped up before you get sucked into the Christmas black hole, all right, or the holiday black hole. So focus on that. Don't let that slide. Don't go, well, I didn't hear anything from anybody today. Maybe I'll just wait until tomorrow. No. Push it, okay? Push it. You can always you can do visual design till you're blue in the face over Christmas because you don't have to interact with other people. This you have to interact with other people, so I would invest some reps into making sure that you get these sessions set up. Okay. All right. Abby, you are up next, and I know that you are struggling with user interviews, or not user interviews. I'm sorry, user stories. You have a bunch of stories here, and right now it's becoming very hard. Like you for some reason moved this out of Google Sheets, and you were saying it was like a struggle, and I get it, I do. But I do think that there's some ways that we could organize ourselves, and I'm gonna meet you here inside of Figma. We could do this inside of Google Sheets as well. But I just want to think about this in terms of what we typically refer to as epics. Okay, there are big overarching things inside of our projects that become huge portions of our projects. So I'm just gonna draw a few things here. I'm gonna put down here like we know that your project is going to have a meal page. Okay, and that meal page, I'm just going to come through and make this a little larger, and I'm going to put it into auto layout so that I can give it a fill. Okay, so we've got this meal page, right? And there are some other things that you have as well. We've talked about search. All right, what are the things that are associated with search? And this is where if you want it to let's just grab a user story, and we're going to kind of affinity map this, okay? Okay, so I need grocery cart checkout page. All right, well that's part of an epic in and of itself. So let's just say checkout. Okay, so there is a checkout epic. All right. What are the things that are part of this? And I probably need to space this out a bit just so we can get our pieces in line. And what you'll find is that there is a method for mapping out your user stories that we will tackle soon. I don't typically um, start with at that point because a lot of times it gets confusing. Um, Recommendations. I think is it two C's? No, recommend. Here it's two M's. Um. Anyway, let's do this real quick. Where is my spelling? Um. Okay. All right. So it's fine. Um. Okay. So I want to see recommendation system. I want a rating system. Okay. So recommendations and rating system. Would that be part of search, part of checkout, or part of meal page? I'm guessing it's part. These are part of meal page. So I'm just gonna measure that in so we can see it. So I want a recommendation system. I want a rating system. What else would we want on that meal page? I'm going to guess that chat feature. No. Okay, I need a search bar. I need a home page. I need a meal. I want a meal rating over. That's got to be overview. I want meal rating overview icons on meal offered page, so I can reference good meals from bad meals. I want a quick add button on meal page. All right, so this now we're beginning to see like what is that meal page, and this is what I was referring to during the last call. Is like how can I get it to where these things are bucketed together so that you can see, okay, here's all the stuff that I see rolling up to the idea of the meal page. Okay, it's going to have a rating system on it. It's going to have a recommendation section. It's going to have a rating overview. It's going to have a quick add button so I can add it to the cart really fast. Now you're beginning to get a picture of the meal page that might have been harder to see when these were all individual stories kind of floating around. Um, Another thing that we talked about was like the idea of current order. So on, that might be, you know, um, profile page. You know, you know, on the profile page, um, I want to view my orders. So I can reference past orders placed quickly. So on your profile page, you can now see like, oh, there's all sorts of stuff on my profile page. One of those things is probably a tab for my orders. What else would be on there? Probably like update password, update payment billing options. You know, is there an allergy setting here? Are there is that where notification? Is that where I control my notifications? There's all sorts of things. I need a current order section. Okay, so that sounds like something that would be in this. Orders page, or at least it would be on the profile page associated with orders. But this is all about figuring out, okay, where do these associations exist? And I would encourage you to, like, I know you've gotten all your stories here, but go through and say, okay, if I'm picturing this, I know that like you had something in here that's like, Okay, I need a home page, right? So what happens on that home page? What do you think occurs there? I need a home page, and that's going to be like, okay, so now I need to sign up for an account, or I need to view meal plans. So that gets me in the pricing. I think all of this, rethinking about your user stories in terms of the pages that need to exist, will be beneficial. Sometimes it works. I guess what I'm trying to say is everybody has a slightly different way of working. I typically find my way to this place from the user stories. I don't necessarily know all the pages that need to exist ahead of time. I go through my user stories and I go, oh, that sounds like a settings page, or that sounds like a menu page, or depends on the type of project I'm working on. Just recently, I was working on something for a physician, and it's like, okay, so they're going to have like a page about them, and then they're going to have a page like a customer testimonials page, and then they're going to have oh, hey, there's probably some questions that are often asked of them because most people don't know what they do. And then there's going to be like, oh, what services do you provide? Like, and as you're going through the user stories, it begins to the contours of this thing begin to form. I think that part of the problem is sometimes we move in so many different directions, it becomes hard to see where we have a formation occurring that gives us clarity, and like we can when is that moment when we can close our eyes and see, we can actually see what it is that we're trying to work on. And the user story process is very much trying to get at that. Here, this is taking it more into the realm of epics, and that's okay. However you get to the finish line is fine, okay? But I'm just trying to give you different levers to pull on so that you can get over that hurdle, okay? All right, and let's jump into Bren's work here. I'm going to kind of go backward here because I think that Bren, you've done a really good job here on the information design exercises. So part 3 of the exercise is we take a home page, and here we've taken Figma's home page, and we've said, hey, we need to add a section, okay? And you can probably figure out which section Bren added because my face is there. But what typically happens here is when you're working on a project, or when you're new to a team, you're given the task of, hey, we need to update something on the homepage, or we need to add a new thing to the site. Okay, very rarely is your first task ever like build a new site. That's not how it works. And in this particular case, I gave Bren a ton of information, like all these photos and all this information, and you have to determine like, okay, so here's the views, here's the likes, here's when it was published, here's the restrictions, visibility, here's all this stuff. All right, and it is kind of interesting. I was just looking back. Yeah, it's funny when I set this up, the views on this was 297. Now there's over 20,000 views of that video. That's crazy. But that said, so the video you chose was wireframing in Figma, wireframes that grow with your design. Here's the content, and then create wireframes. All right. When you look at, first of all, get past the fact that the typography is a little different. She did not have the exact typography Figma had. She was just told, hey, go get some type that's kind of close to what they've got. Okay? But there's a label, there's a headline, there's a block of copy, and then there's a button with each of these things. If you go through the site, like, each thing as you go down has a similar design. Prototyping, same way. So what she's really tasked with is, can you go through, figure out what color you want this to be, add this information. Keep in mind she has not been through color accessibility yet, so I'm not talking about I'm not going to ask the question of whether this color separates, whether this blue separates well from the black yet. That's the next phase. Um, but in terms of like aping, mimicking the design here, it works. Okay, so, and you can see it over and over again. It fits. Like if she had the exact font that Figma's using, you wouldn't think much about it in terms of, oh, is that really there? Yes, it's really there. It's in the style of. Now, what's really weird is this image of me, because they have all these little illustrations and whatnot that are Figma related. So from that perspective, it doesn't really fit. But from the, can I figure out, how to make this move around? Like she made it dance. She made it go from the left to the right, back to the left, to the right. It's moving around. It's creating diagonals. We talk about it in patterns. How the movement of the page. This is emulating that. So great job there. Totally think that this fits. Okay. As we work our way back, let's go to part 1. This is looking at the laws. All right. And there's so many laws that present here. Proximity, like all of the, this is a unit. Similarity, symmetry is a big one. And this is really the only one that I really saw that you missed. Like if you cut this in half, it is like whoop, perfectly symmetrical, like two sides coming together. Even though it's 3, if you cut it in half, like everything is centered and like it's symmetrical. And then similarity, it fits the same, like card. Over here, wow, if there was anything that was more symmetry and similarity related. Every website typically has the law of proximity in use, at least in like the nav bar. And this, this is all in proximity as well. This is a lot of, proximity, similarity, continuity. If I hit login, it's going to take me, to a logical place. Proximity, like this is all related, then this is all related, then this is related. Similarity, these units, this is also goes into symmetry. So, so much of this, is just, can you go through and think of what aspects of this represent the laws? And I just want to take a quick note here. Okay. One thing I think I should do here is I should have an examples page somewhere. I've done it in other exercises, but I haven't gone back and done it here. I just want an examples page where the laws aren't just in New Pragmatic, because they're in the they're in the writing, they're in the information design writing, but they're not really you're having to match the two across boundaries. But let's talk about this, okay? And this is where I kind of geek out, because so much of your ability to do quality information design goes back to your ability to edit, okay? And when I think about this little display here, and I go, okay, I've got Exit Stage Left, one of the best live albums ever recorded by Rush. I've got this information, and then I've got when it was recorded, how many songs were on it, how long it was, the style, the recording restrictions, the ratings, the comments, and I go, wow, that's a lot of stuff. I have fit it in everything that was basically over here, and that's not necessary. Okay, one of the big things that you have to remember is that, like, especially when we come in here and we look at this, and I'm gonna, for lack of a, I'm gonna use these others as a guide, but you gotta remember, like, when we look at this in terms of in terms of you know we're on our phones, and let's just pretend that these are two different um, items. Let's go beauty behind the madness explicit, right? And I'm not sure. Did you use? Did you? No. Okay. So you did not create styles for that, and that is okay. But here, if I say Roboto 14 bold, that's the same size, right? Well, now where does the weekend go? Like, where do I put that information at? So the weekend is now down here, and you've got some spacing here. So the spacing here says 20. So I'm just gonna say 20, and like, I'll automatically I've just put the album title in there, and I've got a problem when the second title comes in. So we have to think about these things in terms of what happens when that other information comes in, right? And some of these, like Metric, Fantasies, and by the way, these are all Canadian albums. These are albums by Canadian artists. When this other album comes in, there's a lot of space. Like, there's plenty of space left around. What I would encourage you to do is think about this in terms of and I'm just going to pull this back over. Think about this in terms of, okay, last time when I opened Spotify or Apple Music or not Jumia, what Tidal, what did I really care about? Well, this is the album is The Weeknd, Madness. Did I really care about any of this stuff down here? And the answer is probably no. I cared about the album title. I cared about the artist. So the album title might be 16. The artist, I think you can get away with making the artist 14. If you are curious about what that probably would be, then I would encourage you to come over and take a look at, where did my human interface guidelines go? Nope, that's not it. So I apparently lost my human interface guidelines, but I'm going to say human interface font sizes. And this is where we will begin to look at typography in iOS. So as we come down, you can see like the display sizes for titles and whatnot in iOS are, for a headline here it's 17, and this is more for like if I'm in a label, or not in a label but in a list, which is very similar to what this is. So this would be like 17. Okay, and that's the size that we would find it in iOS. And I say iOS because this is an iPhone shallow field, okay? And also, if you're really wondering, like, there are all these other kits that you could go look at. And, how would that be set up? I would encourage you to go digging through the community files as well. There's a lot of information there, but I digress, because most of the problem here isn't related to the size of the type. It comes down to the editing of the content. Information design is all about editing, okay? And if you get that through, then you're going to be okay. All right? Past this, what other information do I really need? Well, a lot of times, the star rating is kind of important. So maybe we'll go up here and we'll put the star rating in there. Do I need this space around the edges, or should that be just to the edge? Don't know. But that's oftentimes more like what you will see in your feed of music that you're looking at, okay? Not necessarily all of this other information. The same thing, oddly enough, applies when you have a larger field to work with. So I kind of want to see like your retake on this. I've kind of refocused here. Also, fun point of clarification here. You might wonder why I go to the edge of the cell, and this was something I used to do the border thing just like you did here. The first apps that I released back in 2009, I had borders around everything. And we had our app reviewed by the iOS developers at Apple. It was WWDC. It was very early in that peer. It was like one of the first worldwide developer conferences where they were talking about iOS, and they were chastising us about the fact that we put something that was a box, which was the phone, and then we put a box inside of that, which was the border, and then we put a box inside of that, which was the image. And they're like, the phone is the box, so make the image go to the edges of the box. And that stuck in my head because it's right. We love seeing images full screen. This is as full screen as this little table is going to allow you to go. But if you keep that idea of lose the border, I don't need it because people want to see the image as large as possible, that's going to pay you huge dividends as you move forward. Okay? So make use of that space, and then, give that space back to the content, because there are going to be album titles that are way longer than this. Okay? Not all of them are going to be metric, but even when you pick an okay long one, like, it could come up in size, and then all this other information go away. All right. So that's going to wrap us up for today's edition of the Feedback Loop. I hope that this has been beneficial to you. Thank you, Bren. Thank you, Abraham. Thank you, Abby. Thank you, Eddie. Everybody for submitting their work today. And without further ado, I'm going to just wrap this up and turn it back over to you. I'll see some of you later today. For the rest of you, I hope to see you here tomorrow. Take care.